Good afternoon, everyone. Despite today being a work day, I have to call in sick, as you might infer by the fact that I'm wearing my pajamas and I'm not wearing any makeup. Also, I am sitting on the floor. Before revealing to you what my disorder has done to me to force me home on a work day, I need to tell you the fabled story of my new prescription glasses. As you might have noticed by now, I daily wear glasses, and that's because of my short-sightedness. I've had myopia since I was a pre-teenager. For most of my life, I wore contact lenses because I always wanted to be pretty and because I never wanted to look like the geeky kid I was. But I had to stop wearing contacts a few years ago due to a change in job which required me to look very closely to objects, which made it almost impossible for me to focus at such short distances while wearing contacts. A couple months ago, willing to humor all my friends and family who never liked the frame I'm currently wearing, my boyfriend included, I decided to go buy new glasses. And since I had also experienced some visual weirdness at the beginning of the year, I decided to go to the eye doctor to have my eyes checked. Contrary to my perception, the ophthalmologist told me that my short-sightedness hadn't worsened one bit, and he wrote down the prescription for my new glasses, which I immediately took to the optician to have them made. This is the frame that I picked. It looks amazing on me, even though you'll have to take my word for it because probably I will never be able to wear these glasses. You wanna know why? I'm afraid I will have to digress one more time to explain it. When I was 25, the majestic basket of my panic disorder got filled in with a brand new symptom. That new symptom was dizziness. I am sure that lots of you have experienced at least once in their life an episode of dizziness, but for those very fortunate of you who do not know what dizziness is, let me just explain. Dizziness is an umbrella term that covers three different types of sensations. Number one, the sensation of being woozy and lightheaded, like when you stand up too fast and you kinda black out but not quite, and you feel like fainting but you don't. It is also called presyncope, and it can cause nausea and vomiting. Number two, disequilibrium, the sensation of being off balance or the sensation of losing balance. Also, disequilibrium can cause nausea and vomiting and can turn walking into a pretty difficult task. Number three, probably the most famous of the sensation, is vertigo. Vertigo is the sensation of spinning, whether it is your head that feels like spinning or whether you feel that the environment is spinning around you. That is why it is also divided into subjective vertigo and objective vertigo. Also, vertigo can cause nausea and vomiting. Dizziness can be due to a number of conditions and pathologies, which I am not going to make a list of for the sake of my fellow hypochondriacs out there. What I'll say though is that any declination of dizziness can be ultimately ascribed to a dysfunction of at least one of the three main perception systems of our bodies, which are the visual system, that obviously refers to the eyes and vision, the vestibular system, which refers to the inner ear, and proprioception. Proprioception is not the easiest concept to grasp, but in short, it can be defined as the awareness of the position of your body parts relative to one another and the position of your body relative to the environment. So, when I started having dizziness, I obviously had myself checked. And since there were no physiological abnormalities in my ears, eyes, or brain, I was finally diagnosed with a specific dizziness, which is a nicer way to call anxiety-related dizziness. It turned out that dizziness is a very common symptom of mental disorders such as generalized anxiety, panic disorder, and major depression. Throughout the years, my dizziness changed a lot. It went from vertigo to disequilibrium to presyncope, and then back to vertigo, and then back to disequilibrium and presyncope again. Now, keeping that in mind, let's get back to my glasses fairy tale. When the optician called me in to pick up my new glasses, the nightmare began. Have you ever felt that amazing sensation of wearing new glasses and being finally able to see the world again? Well, when I put my new glasses on, I felt like I wanted to pull out my eyes with a spoon. Something was off. Something was weird. Something was definitely wrong. I voiced my concern to the optician, and he reassured me, and he told me that it would take me some time to adjust to these new glasses. Skeptical as I was, I still decided to trust his professional opinion, and I went back home with my new glasses sitting on my nose. After years of being dizziness-free, that very evening my vertigo was back. All of a sudden, I couldn't walk without staggering, I couldn't stand, I had to cling onto every piece of furniture available only to keep myself steady. My stomach was upset with nausea, I felt like vomiting, and my legs' muscles were sore from the effort of keeping me in balance. I tried to endure that ordeal for a couple days. I was confident that over time I would have adjusted to these new prescription glasses. And that reminded me of the experiment conducted by Professor Stratton of Berkeley University in 1895 to analyze the visual perception and to test the limits of the human brain's adaptive capacity. For a period of 8 days, Professor Stratton forced himself to wear a pair of specially engineered glasses that were designed to reverse the images upside down and right to left. For the first 4 days, his life was miserable. He had troubles performing even the simplest tasks. He couldn't walk, he couldn't stand, he couldn't write, he couldn't read, he couldn't even pour himself a cup of tea. He also started developing motion sickness-like symptoms like nausea, vomiting, headaches, migraines, eye strain, and so forth. However, on day 5, he noticed that the world didn't look upside down to him anymore. His brain had adjusted and adapted to the changes in his vision. So 8 days into this experiment, and he was again a fully functional human being capable of performing any task. Professor Stratton's experiment showed to what extent our brains and our eyes can adapt to major modifications in our visual perceptions. It also showed that motivation can be a huge motor for adaptation. The professor was determined to conduct his studies, and he was willing to undergo that kind of torture to accomplish that. But what about regular people? Can we be asked to adapt to such dramatic changes, and most importantly, why should we? Obviously, my wrong glasses were nothing compared to these specially engineered goggles that made you see the world upside down. But still, I was asked to adapt and adjust to something that was actually making me sick. I went back to the optician, and for an endless and excruciating month and a half, we tried to fix my glasses. We changed prescription 3 or 4 times. We changed lenses 3 or 4 times. I spent a fortune with the only result to have a bunch of wrong lenses. We couldn't find the right lenses for me. This also meant that I was constantly dizzy. And when I just couldn't take it anymore, I decided to do some research on my own. With my research, I discovered that wrong lenses can mean a lot of things. Wrong lenses can mean that you get a correction for astigmatism, which you cannot tolerate even if you are astigmatic. Wrong lenses can mean that you are very, very sensitive to the optical materials used in the production of the lenses, and that you might be able to spot the difference between glass and plastic, or plastic and other materials, and that you might not be tolerant to one of those materials. Wrong lenses can mean a change in the base curve of the lens, and you might not be tolerant to specific curvatures. Wrong lenses can mean that you are uncomfortably aware of the frame or of the edges of the lens, so you might experience a very uncomfortable feeling of being closed in. Wrong lenses can also mean hypercorrection, which forces your eyes to an unnecessary effort to adjust to seeing too much. I had to go by exclusion, and after careful analysis, I concluded that all those lenses were wrong for me, either because there was some change in the curvature or because their graduation was simply too strong for me. As it turned out, it was a combination of both. When I went back to the optician with my hypothesis and my research, he basically laughed at me. His theory was that I was just a nutcase overreacting to something as simple as adaptation to a new pair of glasses. Surprisingly, I don't really like being laughed at. I went to a different optician and the mystery was finally solved. All those lenses were wrong because I was right. I was being hypercorrected and I was forced to a curvature that my brain just couldn't stand. Not a very common situation, but possible. So this heaven-sent optician made a pair of brand new lenses for me on the spot with the proper graduation and the proper curvature, and he gave them to me. He also told me not to wear them right away, but to give my eyes some time to rest and get back to normal after a couple months of cruel experimenting on them. So no. Unlike the Berkeley professor, I decided not to adapt. So I'm waiting, sitting on the floor because my dizziness is giving me a hard time standing up or walking, wearing my pajamas because I just couldn't go to work, with my new glasses sitting in their case, my old glasses sitting on my nose, and I'm hoping that when this is all done, I will be finally able to wear my new glasses, to stand up and walk again around the box I live in.